hanging out with other Unity families. It's just fun to me. So thank y'all for inviting me, allowing me to come in and be a part of y'all's family, your community. And as we've already established, I'm in Little Rock, um, a little ways down the road from y'all, not quite just around the corner. So much so that I'm always amazed. I had to look on where Stockton was to make sure where it was around the San Francisco area that I knew it was, but I didn't know exactly where it was. And I hear that when I talk about Little Rock, Arkansas, that people aren't really sure where Arkansas is. They just know it's over yonder in the south somewhere. So a little difference maybe in our locale, but a whole lot of similarities, I bet. Um, just 3 weeks ago, I had 12 inches of snow in my front yard. And this week, yesterday, spring has arrived. Everything from the Bradford pear trees to the tulip trees to the quinces and goldenrods and hyacinths and jonquils are all blooming. It's just color here for us. So that's been an exciting revelation to finally have spring coming in the middle of March. Doesn't mean we won't get a little more cold weather here, but spring seems to have arrived. And to me, I'm celebrating that because spring to me is the ending of that hibernation, that withdrawal, settling in, resting period that takes place in winter when things just shut down a little more. And y'all might be a little different in wherever you're at, whether that's California or maybe some of you are from other places, that this doesn't quite look like spring to you, or maybe your spring isn't quite as visible as it is in other times in other places in the country. But nonetheless, spring is here. Spring is about nature, about the shifting that's taking place. So even if its appearance doesn't seem to be here, it's here. It's arrived for us. So with that, I'm going to invite us this morning that we set an intention together. And I know that you might have an intention on why you come on Sunday mornings, and even the community has an intention of why you congregate together on Sunday mornings. But I'm going to invite that we set an intention right now, this morning, together. I'm going to spend just a few minutes, and I'm going to invite, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes and just settle in. I'm going to use a bell and ring that just so that you'll know that noise is about to come. So take a big breath. And as you exhale, know that you're releasing all the old, all the past. And as you inhale, you're bringing in this new life, this spring of the year, bringing in that there are things that are coming alive, being reborn, reawakened in their experiences. And that you are recognizing that rebirth that's taking place. And in your mind's eye, you can see the greenery that spring so invites to come forth, and the buds and the blossoms that bloom for us, all the colors and all the fragrances. See those colors. And most certainly, as you breathe in those fragrances of those flowers. Know that they're announcing their presence. They're calling forth to the world and saying, I'm here. As are the animals, whether it's the honeybees buzzing their way toward those flowers, whether it's the birds chirping and calling, that we hear those sounds and then know that those sounds too are calling forth and proclaiming, I'm alive, I'm here. And feel the sunshine. This time of year, just a little warmer, penetrating a little deeper, knowing that it's filling us, nourishing us, providing for us at this time to allow that growth, to encourage that expansion. And know too that as we come together in a community, we come together all as individuals, bringing forth our own beauty, our own blossoming, our own fragrance, and calling forth that we as individuals are letting the world know we're alive, letting know our friends and family they're with us, claiming to them that we're alive, that I'm here. I'm here. And as a community, we call forth to one another, but we call out to the world. We're here. We are awakening, alivened, and we are transforming ourselves and our world. And we acknowledge in an intention that we come together to support one another in knowing that I am alive and I am here. And we support one another in that transformation that takes place whenever two or more are gathered. And in this place, we are grateful, and we acknowledge this and say, and it is so. As you open your eyes and return yourself more to this place and this time and this presence here on Zoom, know that there isn't any difference between being right here on Zoom or right there in a sanctuary together. I know we like to claim that it is. There's a little difference down how we physically get the touch, but there's no difference in our ability to reach out our hearts and love, and touch, and be with each other. To me, an example of what the spring is doing for us. It's showing us that we can return out of this winter, slower pace. May not necessarily be snow where you're at, but the seasons, the nature, it has its own way of presenting itself wherever it might be in the world to show that there's a little transformation taking place, maybe a little withdrawing, a little more quiet, a little more calmness. But then there becomes a time in which the world is enlivened. Things begin to grow, take root more so, open up, and that blossoming and that claiming of the world seems to be exemplified by what happens in that springtime. Again, whether the appearances are showing us that or not. Next week, as part of my ministerial program, I do my interviews. Every 2 or 3 times a year, we get to be the wonderful student that sits in front of a panel of ministers, and they get to ask me anything they want to ask me. Which sometimes goes as well as you can imagine that might go. Mostly it's pretty good, but my interviews are next week. And I'm reminded because it's all online, but before COVID, I used to go up to Unity Village, which is stunning, beautiful grounds, a great feeling of energy there to be in that, just in that presence of all the people that have come before that have held that understanding and clarity of unity. But alas, not doing that next week. But I was reminded of a time in which I was doing that. And I'd been at Unity Village for about 8 days. I'd gone through my interviews. I was taking day-long classes, and I was just about to wrap things up. And I was staying in a hotel down the road, just one of those small chains. And I got up that morning knowing that the light was at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I was almost wrapped up with that week. And I just felt good that morning. I had a little pop in my step. I had a little smirk on my face. It was just a good morning. I was enjoying it. I liked it. And I went out for my morning run. A little forest nearby, a small lake. It had rained a little that night. I could see a rainbow in the distance. And I could just imagine me holding that pot of gold from the end of the rainbow because it was a good morning. I was feeling good. And I strolled back to the hotel, which is pretty accurate. That's about how fast I run. I stroll. I got to the hotel, and it's one of those that they include breakfast with your room. And I wander into breakfast, and they have one of those waffle stations. You know what I'm talking about? Where you've got the container that's got the spigot, and you pour a little batter into a cup, and you pour it onto a waffle maker, and you close the lid, and you turn it over, and it starts a 3-minute timer, one of those. And I'm thinking it's such a good morning, I'm going to have something I don't normally eat, and that's waffles. So I head over, grab that spigot to pour me some waffle batter, and that spigot just falls off on the counter. And my rational mind says there can't be any pressure behind that, so that batter should have just poured out onto the counter. But to me, it shot out like a fire hose. And I can't imagine, I'm probably would be embarrassed what words came out of my mouth, as well as what high-pitched childlike squeals probably came from me as I was doing everything I could to hold that batter back into that container. Fortunately, one of the service people came over, started helping getting that flow stopped, as well as another employee and another employee and another employee. And as I was trying to help, they were just pushing me back, saying, "No, no, we got this, we got this." And as I stepped back, I could see I had batter from elbow to hands, both arms, down the front of me, on my shoes. It was on the counters, it was on the floor. The employees were tracking it across the floor to the closet where they were getting mops and buckets. It was an incredible mess. Um, being the slightly wise man that I am, I saw my moment to get the heck out of Dodge, and I did. And I headed back to my room, took my shower, and of course came back to the lobby with my head held low, a little hiding taking place because I was sure that at any moment somebody was going to point and say, "There he is!" And the pitchforks and the torches would come out because of the mess that I had contributed to the process of breakfast that morning. I'm sure somebody there got some good laughs at my at my expense. Not the employees and not so much me. But I went and found the service person that was there in that dining area and told her, "Man, I'm the mess maker. I'm sorry. You know, what did digital?" And she was especially kind and told me, "Nope, it's not the first time it's happened. That's why we all knew the process to get it cleaned up." And she sent me on my way. And I tell you this story because life, often we're kicking up our heels. We're having a wonderful high old time. And then, just like that, the big old mess just shows up. And all that kicking up the hills and enjoying just seems to go right out the door for us. And that's been my experience this past year. COVID, probably my experiences in some ways have been no different than yours. I've had to learn a new way of doing work, a new way of going to school, a new way of living and socializing. I've also had health issues. I've had COVID. I had to learn a new way to address my health, a new disease to address, etc. for me. It seemed like a big old mess in my life. It seemed like that waffle batter had gone from head to toe in what previously seemed like a pretty good life. So I look back on this year and I know that not only do I feel personally um, messful, if I can use a non-word there, in my life, I look at what's happened in our society and I look at the anger and the frustration and the conflict and the division that's taken place. And I see that and I think of that as a mess too. So I feel that this idea of spring, as I've been watching all this bloom here, is reminding me and giving me hope because it's showing me that nature is showing me that we have an opportunity to step out of whatever darkness we may be perceiving, whatever mess we think that is taking place in the world, that there is something new being birthed. There's a new rebirth taking place, an aliveness that's unfolding for us. Spring has arrived. Again, whether the appearance of it is here or not, that nature's own expression of spring is available for us. And that we, being a part, connected to nature, we get to take advantage of that. We too can be reborn, be transformed, and celebrate in this life what unfolds in all springs, and that is new growth, um, maturation, creation unfolds for us. So spring is more than just a changing of seasons. It's a rebirth of spirit. That's according to the great author Tony Sorensen, that spring is a rebirth of spirit. And to me, rebirth is about awakening. And our great founder of Unity, one of the co-founders, Charles Fillmore, says that awakening is becoming conscious of our spirit, becoming conscious of the things that are of God. And that awakening also is becoming conscious of all that is involved in our lives. And that healing, to me, is part of that consciousness. Because healing for us means that we're restoring to our original origin. I know that sometimes we think about healing as physical healing. I'm healing my body. Maybe I'm getting my mental and emotional life in line. But to me, that healing is ultimately that restoring us to that purity that we are, our divine nature, if you will. And even though I don't think that we're going to restore ourselves to exactly the way we were before COVID, I think that we're fully capable of restoring ourselves to our original purity. Will it happen tomorrow, next week? I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. But I think for individuals, it's most certainly happening on a day-to-day basis. And for us as a society, we have that capability. And if we have the capability, then it's a potential. And if it's potential, then we can create it. We can heal in our lives. We can bring forth that which, up until now, we've been focused on almost everything in existence that isn't been the truth of our being. That's not necessarily true of all of us all the time, but we as a society get so focused on things that are not relevant to the truth of who we are, our divine nature, our divine self. But in healing, we get to uncover the expectations, the projections, the beliefs, everything that isn't us, so that we can discover and become more of who we are. So the question I might ask this morning that y'all can just contemplate is, who are you? Who are you? Are you that wonderful waffle batter mess? Are you something far more than that? Are you this divine nature? Are you that purity that arises when we reveal the truth of the existence of me, you, us? Now, often when I think of healing and I think of asking that question of who I am, I think of the other founder of Unity. And I bet you, some of you have heard this story, but it's about Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle, back in the late 1800s, she had tuberculosis, and she went and heard a fella named E.B. Weeks. We're not really sure what E.B. talked about, but we sure know what Myrtle walked away with. And she walked away with a statement that said, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness or disease. I'm a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness or disease. She took that into prayer, made it her practice, and she healed herself of that tuberculosis. That's as the story goes. And we have every reason from the way she wrote, that's what took place. Now, what we don't think about often is how long did it take her to heal that? It took 2 years. It didn't happen overnight. It was a process that unfolded because of her practice. So another question I might ask is what do you think Myrtle was thinking during that? Did you think that she thought she could heal? I might say that her thinking changed because she had that idea when she started those 2 years. She didn't heal in month one. It took her that consistent practice and time before she could change, to me, her thinking, how she thought about healing, how she thought about herself, to arrive at that place that she could transform her physical body. That to me, that's when we're talking again about healing and talking about Myrtle's journey. We're talking about her having faith. And faith is really necessary for us if we want to be that transformative presence in the world. If we want to take and utilize this spring in our life and use it to transform, then there needs to be faith there. Because without faith, then we're opposing that possibility of healing. Meaning that we're not seeing the world for its truth, our inherent divine nature that we are. And that as we develop our faith, we necessarily can dwell in that love and power, or God love, God power that's present for all of us. And that unwavering faith allows us to deepen that understanding, deepen that experience, and deepen what we can do in our world, like healing from tuberculosis. So, how do we dwell in that love and power that allows us to embody that recognition, to take it beyond thinking that I think I have a divine nature, but do I live it and express it? Well, it takes a practice for us to do that. We talk about that often. Many communities of unity in many places talk about meditation and prayer and the practices that we can utilize to help that unfold. But ultimately, we have to take that practice into the world. And to me, I think of the love and power of God as what I do in the world. And the best way that I can step out and do in the world is to step into others' lives. And I may do that as a profession, and I do that as a service. I step in and engage people in their lives, and I see what's happening in their lives. I listen to their stories, and I see the miracles that happen in their lives, and I see the messes sometimes happening in their lives. Because we're all human. We have both sides of that spectrum, the miracle and the mess. But to me, stepping into the lives, stepping up to people, especially in this time when we have such division, that we see others that don't think like us. I've got some great friends I love immensely. We are 180 degrees. We don't see eye to eye on things, some things so far a spread that it's hard for us to even have a conversation. Not because we're angry and upset with each other, but because it takes such an effort for us to get on a commonality in which we can discuss the topic. So to me, if that's with my friends, the people that I don't necessarily know as my friends yet, my ability to step into their life and have that interaction allows me to recognize in them how they are divine and how ultimately they typically want exactly what I want. They have a different way of going about it, but they in the core want the same things I want. They're looking to uncover and discover that same pot of gold in the rainbow that I'm looking to hold on to in my life. So my final question here for you would be, what do you believe? If you're asking yourself about what do you believe about healing? What do you believe about yourself? What is it that you believe? Ultimately, that question is, what do you believe you are? To me, that answer is an answer that's unique and specific to you, and not it may not align with my answer, may not be an answer that I want to pursue in my life, but it's your answer. And I'm going to invite there, then there's no wrong answer there. What you believe is what you believe. It's now, what do you do with what you believe? If you believe that you can physically heal, then what practices and what steps are you taking to unfold that? And if you believe that you can heal, do you believe that society, that humanity can heal? Can the conflict and messes that we've been seeing in our world, do we believe that we can heal that as well? And what if you don't? What if you don't believe you can heal? What if you don't believe society can heal? That's your right. And that's you, if that's truly what you believe. Then how do you apply that? How do you put it to use to still make a difference in your own life, to discover those things that you're using to keep you distracted away from the truth, the ultimate loving, compassionate truth of who you are? And to me, that's part of our discovery and part of what spring is offering us, the opportunity to start anew, to be reborn, wherever we're at. Because we may be that bulb under the ground that hadn't even thought about popping a little green out. And we may be some of those magnificent cedars, redwoods, pines that have been growing already. They're ever growing for us. But they're still in that new stage, that new expansion, that new maturity. They're being creative, meaning they're creating, they're growing for us. So, whatever that might be for you and your beliefs, what you believe, what are you taking action with that? How are you making the world, your personal world, and the world as a whole, a better place? Because ultimately, I bet you want, in some degrees, something in the world to be a little different, maybe a little less mess by your definition. Maybe it isn't quite as waffled, battered, covered as my world, but nonetheless, there's something that you want to see change. Do you know that you have the power to do that? Whatever your belief may be. Now, as I close here, I saw a story this week, reminded me perfectly of my childhood. I used to eat with an aunt as a child, and she would come when I'd finished and clean my dish away, and I always waited for that one sentence because she would tell me, keep your fork. And if I was keeping my fork, that meant there was something good to come. There was something else after the meal that was about to materialize, and I was going to get to dig into it with that fork. Of course, as a kid, I was talking about dessert. But keeping my fork was saying that helped me know that there was something else coming, something new unfolding, something arriving that I got to dive into and partake of. I'm just going to invite for us, keep your fork. There's something else unfolding for us. Our spring is revealing that. It's arrived. There's something also unfolding for us that's at the end of the rainbow, and you get to decide what that is at the rainbow by what you believe. So what do you believe? And what do you believe is at the end of that rainbow for all of us? So with that, I invite us just to recall our intention to come together, to just share, to recognize that you have a voice, that you share out into the world, and that presence you have also has this ability to share, to claim that we're here, that you're here, and that we're all in this together, and that there's such a beautiful transformative power that happens when we come together as a community, as a family, and just acknowledge that we get to be different and to even have conversations that aren't aligned the same in our differences, but nonetheless get to be a family that says, what do you believe? Tell me more. And what do you believe is at the end of the rainbow for all of us? So with that, I say thank you. And I know that we get to move into our spiritual cafe. And I look forward to hearing some of your stories in this experience of what's been transforming and transformative, or just simply what's been the mess of your life.